Hello, it's Tamara Hunter, and today is day number 123 of 365 days of awesome. Celebrate success through service. And I have today's service hero. Now, let me explain. I am in Vegas, as many of you know, and this gentleman, our service hero, is in the SoCal area, normally where I film. And I met Wyatt a few
Yeah.
weeks ago, and I was ever so impressed by his generosity of spirit and the way that he served those a couple of my friends and myself. So I was so excited when he said, "Yeah, let's go ahead and put this on the calendar." And I did not want to miss the opportunity to highlight Wyatt McCain as our service hero today. So welcome, Wyatt. Now, I
Thank you,
love
Tamara. It's
I
good
love
to
the
be here.
glasses. I
Yes,
love
and
the
I want
glasses.
all
You
your
were saying,
I want all
go
your
ahead.
viewers to know that these are my anti-paparazzi sunglasses. I live and work here in the most famous small city in the world, Beverly Hills, California, where every day is truly Halloween.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And we already have some people that are coming on board with us to say hello. And I want to highlight
Yeah.
Sharon, who is one of our Chemo Buddy for Life's ambassadors. She is also a service hero, and she is welcoming you to the Service Hero Club and the Service Hero family, Wyatt. So I want to highlight what it is that you do because you give to so many people, and you've been doing this for a while. You were
Yeah.
explaining to me that, well, I'm just going to let you say it because I was when you spoke in the room, I was actually so impressed by your presentation,
Mhm.
your experience. I would like for you to be able to share that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Um, I'll take this back to I was about three and a half years old, and I found myself being able, and I didn't know what it was called. I simply found myself hovering above my body, seeing my body, and having no fear, and the slightest semblance of any fear immediately transformed itself into an adventure. Because
Huh.
everything I learned later, every emotion, everything in life is interwoven with its opposite. So without despair, you wouldn't find your joy. So without false expectations appearing real, you wouldn't discover your courage. Without hate, you couldn't find your love. And there on the seesaw of life, normally I'll just tell everybody because like there's my left hand. Okay, now I'm going to hold the phone, and here's the top of the seesaw like that.
Okay, right.
When you're up here and it's about love, when you're up here and it's about joy, when you're up here and it's about your courage, it's not white. It's light silver because there's still a little bit of hate, a little bit of fear, and a little bit of despair. And it's also the first moment of going down toward when you get to the very bottom, it's not black. It's dark, dark charcoal. Why is that? Because there's still a little bit of joy, a little bit of love, and a little bit of courage. So on the seesaw of life, when we're down here, I'll give you a quick example. Down here means it's the first step up the next mountainside, of course. So here's a real life occurrence back in 1805. That's what people used to say, "Ot 5,"
Yeah.
or for whatever century you're in. And so I'm laughing. Uh, Meriwether turns to William and he says, "Bill, we're at the end of the Louisiana Purchase, but there's no Pacific Ocean in front of us." And so Billy, or William,
Right.
he turns to Lewis and he says, "Cheer up, Meriwether, old man. Yeah, we got to go down into the next valley, but it's the first step up the next mountainside. And when we get up there, the view will be even better. And now do it enough times, the final view will be the Pacific Ocean. So let's get moving."
Right. Right. Okay.
So,
And
right. So when I was this wee little kid, I sensed something wasn't right in the house. And whether you come from a family where you're one only child or one of 10,
Mhm.
and if if there aren't a lot of kids, then each child, I have two sisters, um, then then a child, the more sensitive and intuitive they are, what we call an old soul,
Right. Yeah.
the more sensitive and intuitive the child, they become the barometer for the health and sickness of the marriage.
Yes. Interesting. That's very interesting.
Now, yes, exactly. So, and I want to. I'm going slowly because there's so much I can say, but I want to just give a little snippets of everything along to how we got here to almost 2019. Um, so, so there was something going on in the house. And for those just jumping on the call, yes, I am wearing my anti-paparazzi sunglasses, and I never leave home to go through Beverly Hills without them. However, I
Right.
take
You're
them
in
off
Beverly
now.
Hills. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
by the
got to make
way,
that clear. Right. Yeah.
yeah. By the way, because I'm going to take them off, this is funny. It cracks me up. A few weeks ago, I worked with the most famous celebrities here in Beverly Hills, people who have won Academy Awards, they won Grammys, they won Golden Globes, and they keep,
Right.
and they turn to everything they can, from drugs and or alcohol to fame to fortune, because they're looking to fill their human needs from something outside themselves externally. And when they finally realize that fame and fortune, they cannot purchase the one thing that's not for sale, which is fulfillment, that's when I get the call.
Right.
So one of my clients, three and a half weeks ago, cracks me up. It's so funny because I do all my work on the phone. But a couple of them say, "Oh, you must come to my estate." And I go, "Okay." So I get there, and I walk in, and one of them remembered I call them my anti-paparazzi sunglasses. Oh, you won't need them here because this person has armed security people carrying a weapon, patrolling the property all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So
Like a
I said,
compound.
okay, so
Like a compound, right?
yeah, it's 5 acres. So
Wow. Okay. All right.
yeah, I mean, some people, are paying like 6, 7, $8 million just for a small lot.
Wow. Wow.
Okay,
Okay. Right.
so the
Okay.
person's okay. So where I'm going with this is so funny, is that so I take off my anti-paparazzi sunglasses, and my client, who's very famous, I mean, I would mention the first syllable of the first name, and everybody would know who it is. And of course, I'm not going to say it, and I'm not
No,
teasing
no,
people.
no, and nor will I
It's not
ask. Right.
proprietary.
Yeah. No.
So I take
Yeah.
off my sunglasses, and my client walks over and says, "Wyatt, let me show you the proper way to take off your sunglasses."
Okay.
And here's what the client shows me. I'm going to switch hands here.
Okay.
Watch
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
I'm a good student. Here's what the client showed me.
Okay.
See, it said, take the index finger and the thumb
Okay.
and use the balancing of the forefinger. Come
Okay.
over like this.
Uh-huh.
Bring the forefinger up.
Okay.
Now all three fingers are involved, including your thumb.
Uh-huh.
Make sure you're holding the temple part, but close to the rim, holding the lenses. He's explaining all this to me, and I'm going,
Right.
and I'm being respectful because I figured, well, at least I'll learn the dynamics, though I don't give a shit about what it's all about.
Right.
Because, it's all about arrogance, right? It's all about portraying to the public a certain, what they call cool out here. And if you got to be cool, it's because you feel the exact opposite inside. Because the more someone obsesses on a behavior, a car, somebody of the opposite sex, money and fame, the more you obsess on anything outside of you, it's to fill the same proportion of the hole that's inside of you.
Right.
So here's what he does. Watch this. Comes
Okay.
over here
Uh-huh.
like this, says,
Uh-huh.
take them off about till the temples are just about in front of your ear, and then do this. Watch. Like this.
Okay, so then it's the
Now,
quick
I
move.
didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Yeah, I'll show you again. Come over and go. And turn your head a little bit away from the person as if you're taking away your attention to get them to need your attention more. Come like this and then go. Now, I did not express. See, now this is how I normally take off my sunglasses. This is what I do, you know.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a special way to put them on, but that'll be for another interview. So I did I know. So I did everything I could to not do what you're doing. Besides, I was laughing. And
Yeah.
he's a real sensitive, intuitive person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so that's the area I live in.
You know, and I love this story. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
it. Because,
Oh, it cracks me up.
it does. And in it also shares the
Yeah.
it kind of lets people know
Yeah.
the level that you are actually working. And that's why I wanted to also highlight you and honor you as a service hero. And I know, and I want to be respectful to saying the honor, but it's a thank you. Because when the
you're
day
welcome.
that I met you, you actually, a couple of my friends, you helped them unblock some blocks that they had. You gave time to my buddies, a couple of my very dear friends, and we both know who they are, and you spent time with them, and that was out of the generosity of your heart. And I have heard from those friends how it has actually changed the direction and how they're doing internally, and that you really did help to unblock a couple of really big issues that they both were having. And huge, yes, huge. And
huge.
I know, very huge. And in fact, major big, like life-changing, like this week things are different for these two big people because of the time that they spent with you. And that doesn't always happen in an environment where someone like, if you will, someone like a Wyatt McCain that does work with names that we would all recognize on a very high level, and that you gave your time to these individuals. And you really, I watched one of them, I heard about the other, and I was so touched by that I was like, there was no question in my mind that you needed to be highlighted as a service hero, and say thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, in the fact that because your specialty of skill, and I wanted to go into that, you have a tremendous amount of learning. You have dedicated much of your life and to getting the higher level of learning and to be where you are. And so it's something that you have invested in yourself, and now you are helping with others to do, correct?
Yes, that's very. I'm just motioning here to a gentleman sitting down. I want to move my chair over here, and then that way the people watching us. I'm hearing feedback of my voice in the background.
Okay,
Can you do something about that?
Yeah, I don't know, because we're not hearing it ourselves. So
okay,
we're good on the show.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to speed this up a little, because I know we need to. I don't want to miss.
I'm going to have you.
I don't want to miss.
Put the camera up.
I don't want to miss 2029.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to walk over here and get a napkin. So here's what I want to say to everybody. I didn't know at 3.5 years old I was having out-of-body experiences. All I knew was that I was able to do something to mitigate what's called a double bind. Now, a double bind means that you've got one or more of your role models. And by the way, I want everybody to know out there, you have a bare minimum of 4 people living inside your subconscious mind. And that does not include Carl Jung's 4 archetypes. The 4 people each, and this is for everybody on planet Earth. So if any of you got your head up your ass, is because you're living in your head where you're dead and looking to be perfect and be right, so that somebody will give you the attention to convince you that you matter when you're still going to reject their acceptance of you because inside you don't feel you're enough. And so what ended up happening for me is a double bind. Now, this was going on even before several PhD clinical psychologists got together, including one who didn't even have a master's in this. And that was Dr. Chloe Madonis, one of my personal mentors, her second husband, Jay. But here's my point, that when you have one parent, or it could be a dad and a mom, could be more than one person, but when you're given two different messages,
Right.
two different messages, and they're incongruent with one another. For example, go help your mother with the dishes. Don't you know how hard she works here for you and your sisters? Okay, Dad. He says, that's a good boy. You go help. Get away. You can't do it good enough. Then you go back. Then Dad says, I thought I told you to help your mother. I did, sir. I come from a military family, so it's
Right.
yes, sir, no back talk. Because it's not like you missed dessert for 2 nights. It's like no dessert for a year and a half.
Wow.
And that doesn't include mom's tirades. So you get two different messages. It's called a double bind. Really, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're loyal to one message, then you're considered disloyal to the other because they're incongruent with one another. What's the best way of describing this? If you see my right hand? Okay, there are the inside of my fingers. If you put them and interlock them with your fingers of your left hand and pull tension like an isometrics, you'll feel the tension in your forearm, your arms, and your chest muscles. Imagine that kind of tension happening thousands of times over year after year after year, only the tension is on the strings of your nervous system. Those strings are going to get thrown out of whack. And then you're not going to be able to be the living performance of the symphony you were put on this planet to perform and live every day.
Okay, right.
So a few years later, when I was like 6.5 years old, and of course, you know, since little girls are always sticking daggers in boys, oh, I know I'm younger than you, but girls mature faster. So I quickly learned, okay, I'm 6 3/4. I'm catching up to you. So when I was 6 3/4 years old, I went outside. This was the early 1950s, and in LA in the early 1950s, the smog was so bad you couldn't cut it with a hacksaw. Now today is beautiful. Desert winds off the Mojave. It's clear as a whistle. You can see 75 miles in any direction. But back then, and that's because the winds are blowing in off the desert. That's our weather this time of year. Santa Ana condition. Well, anyhow, people don't know if they think air is bad here now and it isn't that healthy. Unless you cross Wilshire Boulevard and go to North Beverly Hills, real estate's more expensive, so the air quality is better. You see, so back then, the sky was brown and kids were falling, kids were getting emphysema, you know, they couldn't breathe, they were getting restricted. It was really bad news. And they were building freeways like crazy. So I went out one day and we were only a couple miles from the Santa Monica Mountains here in LA. And I grew up in a lower middle class to middle class family. And the prevalent philosophy of dad and mom was that it wasn't our condition of being broke, it was that they were poor in spirit. Now, you have heard of a lot of people like Mark Cuban. He owns the Dallas Mavericks basketball team.
Okay.
Yet he goes to big houses to buy things at less money and even takes coupons with him, and he's a mega billionaire. To me, he's a poor man in his spirit with billions, so he's still a poor man because life is lived from the inside out. And prosperity is an inside job like everything else, like fulfillment is. You follow me so far? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So there I am outside in the early 1950s looking up at the brown sky. And I'm explaining it in detail because I want your viewers to see through my eyes. I'm not looking for any of you people to agree. I just want you to step outside, if you will, for a moment of your own belief structure and just see through my eyes what it's like to ask this very, very important question that I didn't even know was that important until just about 5 years ago. And here was the question. I'm 6 3/4 years old, and I look up at the brown LA sky, and I ask myself, how am I going to survive the next 10 and a half years so I can get the hell out of here?
Huh. Huh.
And yeah, and then out of the experience of thousands of times of seeing the insanity where dad and mom's relationship, where dad abrogated the authority as, instead of being a masculine male, an alpha male, he was a wimp, and mom became the husband in the marriage. And I became the surrogate husband, because there's something called a cross-generational coalition where one parent uses one or more of the children to turn them against the spouse.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So when I was outdoors that day, I made a key decision. So let's briefly talk about the blueprints in people's subconscious mind. They're housed inside our subpersonalities. So each person that was a role model becomes a subpersonality. And whichever role model is the most critical of you when you're growing up and your nervous system is young and vulnerable, whoever is the most critical of you becomes the person whose love you crave the most. Crave the most. So when you start to realize, when you get to be 4 or 5 years old and your whole personality is formed by 7, parents most of them are well-meaning, but they're fucked up beyond all recognition. And so what they do to fuck up their children, and by the way, I'm using for your listeners who are all offended by the strong language and those that are macho, and macho is not being a masculine man. Macho is a man who's a wimp and a coward pretending to be a real man.
Okay.
And that's just not in Latin cultures. That can be in any culture. And so whoever love you crave the most, the parents, they either built the child's self-esteem by the time the kid is 7, 8 at the outside, or they totally and thoroughly destroy it. And what gets set in motion so that the child finally realizes, you know what, I'm not going to get my needs met the way I need them met. So the child asks this very important question. It's what I call a how question. With all my clients, I tell them when I want to emphasize something, especially a word, I'll tell them, okay, all capital letters, capital H, space, capital O, space, capital W, space, and then follow with what you want an answer for so the universe can deliver that wisdom through your subconscious mind. Because when you use the key of gratitude to unlock the vault where your authenticity is, then it's through your authenticity that flows healing and forgiveness and the wisdom of the ages. So I, as a kid, recognized and asked this question, okay, how many important parts of myself do I need to split off so I can get the crumbs of love from mom and learn her toxic language for relationships? So that day, that smoggy day in the early 1950s, after I asked that question, I made a key decision. And the key decision was, I am never getting married, never having a family of my own, and never recreating this hell I'm trapped in. So here I am in my early 70s. I'm in my early 70s, never got married, and never had a family.
I did not know this. So, okay, this is interesting. This is very interesting.
Well, now I want to, hold your point. I want to hear it.
Okay.
So but I want to share, what I'm saying, speaking for myself, and I know you wouldn't do this, I don't want this interview on my end of it to be where people are going, well, where's the beef? Like from those years ago? Okay,
right.
So I want to give people the best cut of the steak. And if you're vegetarians, you'll figure out what you need, what you want to call it as a metaphor, So when we split off the best parts of ourselves, we begin. Talk outside? Would you mind talking outside? Actually, I would, sir. So I got to speak a little softer. Somebody asked me to go talk outside, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
So here's what happens. We start to suffer because we start becoming like that toxic, very critical parent of ourselves.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
instead of becoming ourselves, we become like them.
Right. Okay.
Now the good news is that like a bone that breaks, when it's set properly and heals, and you go through your physical therapy, the exact point of fracture is stronger than if it never broke. And that's true for our spiritual wounds as well.
Okay.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to
Oh,
say, now I'm
yeah.
getting where you're going with all of this because of the fact that I'm thinking about my friends and how you help them, and I'm sure this is what you do with your clients, and that is that in helping them to go over and see where it is that they are having their blocks,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to go back and see possibly where those blocks came from. You're helping them. I at least witnessed my two friends be able
Mm-hmm.
to say, okay, these behaviors
Mm-hmm.
now are not serving me. These
That's right.
I need to recognize them and deal with them,
Mm-hmm.
and then be able to move beyond them. And in doing so, I am seeing some amazing things happen with these two individuals.
Yes, they've done great work.
Yes, yes. And and in watching this, what I was able to see, and this is where I wanted to go also with your
Sure.
training, is that you were able to use a variety of different mentors that you've worked with, because
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
hearing that you've done a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of years
Mm-hmm.
with working with some of the very top mentors and trainers.
The two top people in the world.
Right, right. And in that, you are now helping others.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I see that as such a generosity of spirit because you're not holding it in and you are giving it out. Because we were at a summit, it was just, you saw the need and you were there for them. And not
Mm-hmm.
everybody does that. And I just want to
Sure.
thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. And what I you see, I process visually. So when wisdom comes, by the way, I'm not the author. Okay, I'm a messenger. So when you heard what you heard that night, and and what your friends experienced that night at the dinner table, and
Right,
then when I gave each of them a session,
right,
I the skin in the game is never money because I've seen people invest tens of thousands of dollars in programs, plus
right.
airfare, hotels, and meals. But if they don't have, see my fist, if they don't have a hunger to pull themselves out of learned helplessness, where their situation is persistent, it's pervasive, running through every area of their life, and and they made a decision it's permanent, as I did as a young child and felt trapped, then without the hunger is the skin in the game. So the so I got this image a couple months ago when I was on with uh, uh, with a client, and this client suddenly it came to me, and so I want to share this because I think it's, everyone has their own way of relating to different metaphors, but everybody's got a kitchen sink,
Right.
just
Okay.
about, at least in
Yeah.
America,
Yeah.
and you've got the cold water on the right, the hot water on the left. You've got a pipe running horizontally to connect the two. And then in the middle of that horizontal pipe comes the faucet. Well, on the right side, if I look upon that as I got to keep that open 24/7 so that Wyatt's needs get met, so that so that I can give to the world what I need instead of setting people up to fail and disappoint me, so I can feel superior to the pain and shortcomings that I didn't want to deal with for a long time. And then on the left side where there's the hot water, that remains closed because that's the needs of whoever I'm around. And until I know what somebody needs and in the form that they need it in, I leave it off. And I never, ever, ever give people what they want because wants and needs are different. Wants had to do with ego, and living in your head where you're dead. And if you can see this here, see my black wristband and my white
Right.
shirt?
Right.
Okay. Your conscious mind is all about black and white. You ask it a question, and it's got all kinds of answers, like yes, no, sort of, maybe, kind of. I'll try to do it. But try, my definition of try for your audience is I'll go through the motions with no commitment to achieve the result. Like you say to somebody, hey, we're all going to get together Friday night around 5 o'clock. And the person says, yeah, I'll try to make it. Are you really going to count on that person showing up? No, you're not. So what I do is when I know somebody's needs and I give them what they need in the form they need it in and turn on that, well, let's see, this is your left. So I turn on the left faucet.
Right.
And the right one's always on for my needs.
Right.
Guess what comes out of the faucet? It's called a win-win relationship.
I love
You
it.
follow?
I do.
Yes.
Follow. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So I got involved with and began learning about strategic intervention work in 1968.
Oh.
And then I started looking like, this was the days, it's called the card catalog days. You went into the library and pulled up a card catalog.
Yeah.
Or you went to a mom and pop bookshop where it had a certain, smell from the carpeting, right? And
yeah.
Wait a second, I dropped my earpiece here. Okay, there we go, microphone. So here's my point. Let's use. Oh, and by the way, because there are a lot of people in personal development who. One second, I want to get the door for this lady. She's got a baby crib.
Sure.
Have a good day. Okay. So.
A lot of people with personal development, you had just said.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Having the preliminary senior moment there.
Yes.
Only preliminary, So, most people in personal development will not take on the controversial issues and see them for what they are because they want to sell products. So they take this live and let live approach, even if the other people, and it's their right.
Yeah.
For example, a woman's got the right to control her body, but when she's getting the abortion to use it as a form of birth control because she doesn't want to deal with her emotions about carrying a child to term and giving it up for adoption, what the hell is that all about?
Question.
Mm-hmm. Or, in my lifetime, I've seen 4 major events happen in America. 4. Any 2 of which would have torn any other country apart, but it made us stronger. What were they? The entire Cold War happened in my lifetime. I was a teenager in the Cuban Missile Crisis. You couldn't go into a single market, no matter how large it was. The shelves were empty because we were heading to the Third World War. Mm-hmm. It was that tense.
Right.
What's number 2? I saw the entire civil rights movement happen in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I saw the space race. We're getting our asses kicked by the commies.
Right.
And what was the other one? It'll come back to me in a second.
9/11 would be it, right?
What?
9/11?
Well,
call that? No.
I'm talking about something that goes longer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, something. Oh, and of course, race. Well, I mentioned race. I'll get to the 4th one in a second.
Okay.
So here's what I see going on, and if you haven't heard of, I urge you and your viewers to go onto YouTube and look up a clinical psychologist professor at the University of Toronto. He is Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he explains identity politics. So real quick, and whenever I say real quick, that means I'm not going to be quick. So,
I figured that out.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, like somebody says, bottom line, oh shit, it's going to be a dissertation. Okay. So up in Canada, where they've had a federal constitution only since 1967, study started at the University of Toronto and attempted to make and this involves America too, and I'll explain in a second. So some clown decided they wanted to amend the Constitution of Canada because they have at the University of Toronto more than 20 different ways to describe somebody's identity. Now, you're a woman, that's your identity. I'm a man, that's my identity. And people were saying, oh, well, we have the right to be comfortable. So Dr. Peterson, Jordan Peterson, said, wait a minute. So my right in my Constitution up in Canada to express myself freely, what we call down here our First Amendment rights of free speech, so the whole country has to give up some of their rights to express themselves, but nowhere in the Constitution does it say that people have the right to be comfortable. Now let's bring it south of the border, 5440 or 5, as James Polk had told the British ambassador in the 1840s. He said, look, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to divide the line horizontally between the two countries. And if you don't like it, you can bring your Army and Navy over here. We'll kick the crap out of you like Andy Jackson did at the Battle of New Orleans. It's 5440 or 5. So here's my point. When you come south of that 5440 and you come into our country, America, you have going on now a situation where groups of people want to divide and conquer the spirit of this country and hide and are hiding like the cowards that they are, so that we, our country, can have less use of our freedoms, like free speech, like the right to carry a weapon. And what's going on, for example, let's look at race. There, you call a spade, somebody calls you a racist. And that's complete bullshit. You see, it's not what you say. The person speaking, you call a spade, they have their own meaning.
Right.
So,
okay.
So the person,
okay, right.
So the person listening,
right,
gives their own framing or meaning to what you say, and then wants to restrict your rights by accusing you of something you're not.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, so what?
Sure.
In when I was learning in school about conversations,
Yeah.
and stuff, there's always like 3 conversations going on. Mm-hmm. There's one that you intend to have, the one that is being heard by the other person, and mm-hmm. then the one that's actually taking place, right? Mm-hmm. So it's where you're coming from. You may say something that completely is being heard 180 from what you thought.
That's right.
And so then it's whatever is in here, in their heart and in their mind, they're interpreting it.
That's right.
And that is where a lot of the disjointing, if you will,
That's
or
right.
a lot
dysfunctional
of problems. Yeah, a lot of problems that we deal with because of the fact that we're not, if you will, the feedback's not taking place. We're not getting clarity. We're not finding out what the true intention was. We're Correct. Hearing it through our own heart and mind, and then
Always.
Maybe even assuming. So then there's that stress, and so then ta-da, there you go.
Right.
So what you do, Wyatt, in kind of summing this up, and what I saw is that you're helping people to kind of boil it all down. Okay, this is where you're having the issue here. Now let's work it backwards. Mm-hmm. And if it came from like what we were just talking about, from some kind of a conversation that possibly, and a lot of it, yes, I even see it in so many different families, people that I talk with that they grew up thinking a certain way. Mm-hmm. And okay, so like yourself, you've mm-hmm. chosen to not get married, not have children, and you're 70, mm-hmm. though you're looking like you're not 70. I'll tell you that, especially with those fancy glasses of yours. But when you boil it down, no one's perfect. No one has it all going on. No one has that bag of chips, as they say. Yeah. However, when we are trying to raise our consciousness, when we're trying to become a better self, when I'm trying
Sure.
to be a better Tamara, when my friends are trying to find their way in, their future,
Yeah.
Wyatt is there to, if and like what I witnessed, you're there to look at the overall picture. I mean, it was incredible what happened in what I would say a short matter
Hmm.
of time, where you were
Yeah.
able to talk with them, ask the questions, have them really be honest with themselves, and then
Hmm.
look at where they want to go and what is it that is from here to there that can change,
Hmm.
taking that history. I mean, I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but
Yeah, you are. I'm going to enter. I'm going to enter.
yeah, please do.
I'm
Please
Tamara.
do.
I'm going to intervene strategically here to to clarify for your viewers what I'm hearing you say and make it more concise. Okay?
Thank
People
you.
don't see the world as it is; they see it as a projection of themselves. There's something that I learned called neuro for neurological associative. You associate what you're experiencing and your emotions to a certain condition going on. So I'll give you a quick example. My mom was a wonderful lady, kind and loving, and in a New York second could turn and strike like a cobra.
Okay.
And she was not bipolar. She was not bipolar. So, so mom would work herself up into a lather, like for 45 minutes to an hour, telling me and threatening me all she was going to do. And then she went and did it and beat me up to a bloody pulp. And this wasn't
Okay.
something that happened once every 6.5 years. Because mom, now here's my point. So as a human being, I experienced the trauma of the emotions. Now your nervous system, that is
Right.
to say your subconscious mind, is stored in the physiology of your nervous system.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay? Now,
Hmm.
so neurologically, I was under tremendous, my system was experiencing all of this emotional trauma. And interwoven with it was what I saw. Mom would work herself up into such a lather emotionally that she looked, her face, she became another person. Saliva would become like a dog with terminal rabies, as she was screaming and yelling. So I saw it, I heard it, whatever perfume she might have been wearing, I smelled it. And of course, when she took the belt buckle apart, she found the biggest one of my dad's belts with the thickest buckle. And it was the buckle she was hitting me with, until I was bleeding. Now, my point is this. So I had, neurologically, I had the trauma of the emotions,
Hmm.
and it was interwoven with my human senses, right? What I saw, what I heard, what I smelled, what I felt, okay?
Right.
And then came the key decision. Now, that is in my subconscious mind. So my
Hmm.
role model for mom is of being around her. It's that.
Right.
So so um so give me a second to reframe.
Okay.
So so um so I'll give you a quick example of what's going on right now for the viewers. When I started, this man came up to me kind of sheepishly, but politely, and asked me if I'd go outside and talk. Well, I'm not going to do that. There's traffic out there. So he's still repeating himself, and he's closer to me just so that he could justify his victimhood. He keeps saying, talk outside, talk outside. So I'm detaching from that because in this call with you, I step back in my body and now I'm going outside of it. He wants me to respond so he can justify that he has no emotional mastery over himself. He's like a parrot. He keeps saying, talk outside, talk outside. But he could go move somewhere. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
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 So that's a real life thing of what's going on. And so with mom, what ended up occurring, what I'm not going to allow this to, but I'm not going to resist. So what ended up occurring, I'm walking over here a few feet away to make it quieter. Suddenly 1970s music sounds better than it ever did. So anyhow, so you have neurologically, you associate certain traumatic events. And it's interwoven, as I said a couple times, with your your human senses, and then you make these key decisions. Now, one of my subpersonalities is my relationship with my mom.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the
So
you were talking about in the beginning.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so what I realized a few years ago, and this is like going to shell shock. That was the term, for the Second World War when men were going through PTSD. And by the way, I've been trained in, and I know what causes PTSD, and I know how to cure it if the client is not too far gone, because very few people need drugs. And our VA, all across the 50 states, encourages the veterans to begin a paper trail so they may be able to get partial or possibly full disability for the rest of their life. And the reason why this happens at the VA is because if they don't use up their budget each year, the money doesn't carry over. So they instill fear in listen closely, they instill fear in their employees. And the reason why they do that is because they tell them, well, if we don't use the whole budget, maybe we can't justify your position and they might eliminate your job. And why do they do this? So that, you got it. Now, people would say, oh, it's because of the drug companies. People would say, it's because of politics. Well, I'm here to tell you, because I obviously didn't color any of the gray and now it's turning white in, I can tell you without a doubt that American politics is the human condition overdosing on steroids. Mm-hmm. So what this is really about at the VA is, and it's not just in the VA, it can be in marriages as well. If you can have, and by the way, and I'm about to say this because it's so meaningful to me. I give 20% of my time of what I do every week, and I work 7 days a week. I give 20% of my time to our veterans. And I do it, and when I worked with a lady last week. She's around 30 years old. She was Marine Corps entry in Iraq, and she got burned really bad. But I had been talking with her for over an hour, just enjoying the conversation, because I asked her, well, what happened to your hand? How come it's bandaged? But she didn't bother to tell me because she didn't need to live in victimhood like most people do. Because they get certain benefits from being in victimhood. Follow me? They get to connect with their emotions, and they get to get significance for himself, like this man over here who lives in victimhood, you see? And that's part of identity politics. Let's get everybody else to be different so I don't have to grow up. Point. And I hope your listeners will write this down. A new mentor of mine, his name is Dan Pena. Dan, like D-A-N, and the last name is spelled, I'll go slow. And you want to write this down too, Tamara. Okay. P like Papa. Mm-hmm. E like Echo. N like November. Mm-hmm. And A like Alpha. Once again, P Papa, E Echo, N November, A Alpha. Okay. Now, Dan Pena was known as the barrio. He and I are pretty close in age. And he's also in his early 70s. And Dan Pena was known growing up in East LA with a high-profile police officer dad who was a combat vet from both wars, not the First World War, but the second one in Korea. And his dad was extremely strict because he wanted to keep his son alive till his son could grow up inside. And the reason I'm telling you about Dan Pena is that he just didn't get expelled from schools. He got expelled from the whole damn school district. Because when and he went from being arrested 5 times by the age of 10, the last time because he dropped a fully loaded 45-pound aquarium on the head of his teacher from the second story of the school, and instead it only shattered the teacher's shoulder, or Dan would still be in prison after, you got it. So he turned his whole life around, He turned his whole life around, and he volunteered for the draft, which I have tremendous, because I wasn't healthy enough to serve, and he volunteered for the draft in the second year of escalation in Vietnam. That would be 1966. He'd already flunked out of the university 3 times. They said, don't return. So he volunteered for the Army. They saw he had the ability to become a leader. They sent him to OCS. Then they sent him to the elite Ranger School.
Wow.
And so Dan Pena turned his life around. He's the only billionaire, that's right, billionaire in the entire world, the only one who teaches people. He even stopped charging for his website. He's the only one who teaches people how to do what he's done. And instead of taking 35 years, it can be done in 3 to 5 years, 7 at the outside. So if people want to, and Dan Pena, the reason he's my mentor and what I've learned from him, this is for your listeners. That's why I'm giving you a little background so they'll know who he is. Okay. It isn't about that he's a rags to riches story. That's not what it's about.
Okay.
What it's about is that I've known for years that political correctness was incorrect. There was something not right about it. And when I heard Dan Pena say that political correctness is the manifestation of a lack of self-esteem, and that since the end of World War II, Americans have been raising one generation after another to where people don't want to be accountable for the consequences of their actions. So too many people, and by the way, there are no absolutes. People are thinking in absolutes, they're back in victimhood land, black and white. Because everything, your subconscious mind, everything is shades of gray, like on the seesaw of life, okay? So you're only as high as you're willing to be low. If you can't walk through your fear, you won't discover your courage. If you can't give joy away when you're feeling like shit, how in the world is your despair going to transform into the joy?
Right.
So the other thing I heard Dan Pena say I want to share with your viewers, this is very powerful. He said, show me your friends, who you hang out with. He said, show me your friends, and I will show you your future.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. It's that sum of who it is that who you spend time with.
Yeah, exactly. And so
it's said in different ways, but I love that because it is absolutely true. But I will say this, I have heard this, and I do like this saying in that, you need to have one hand up, you need to have one hand down, because in all of humanity, if we are constantly helping ourselves to go up, but then we're helping those others helping them to go up, we're constantly helping to raise a better situation. We are being, if you will, the service hero.
That's what you're all about.
Yeah, we're finding it within ourselves, right? Finding that service hero inside of ourselves and helping those around us to do the same thing. And in doing so, we will have a better community. We're going to help those like my chemo buddies, helping them to find the reason that they want to stay alive. And
but you want life to be more than survival.
Yes, true. I agree with you 100%.
And the reason I'm intervening strategically here is to let everybody know, because I want to finish answering. I went off on a sidebar that's integral. It isn't just the steak. How good is a steak if there's not the trimmings around it on the plate?
Right.
Okay. How good is a dinner if you don't have soup and salad? So if life is bland, you're going to get bored. And after boredom comes frustration. And after frustration comes anxiety. And then what you're projecting into the future is indeed what you're seeing now, because there is no future and there is no past. But most people live in the past and they continue, and so emotions I've covered over the last half century, emotions are the highway upon which We travel to learn our lessons. So I want you to imagine for just a moment that we're in the Montana Rockies, where I'm going to put my ranch for disadvantaged children. I'm going to open it up in 4.5 to 5 years.
Love.
And yeah, I love it. I love it. I live for it. So anyway, let's just say that your property line is at the base of the mountain. And every springtime when it warms up, what happens? The snow on the mountain, of course, melts, comes down. Now you've got a faucet there, just like the kitchen faucet.
Right.
Now, if you keep it closed, the riverbed through your property and everything on each side, the animals, the flowers, the trees, and your neighbors downstream, nobody's going to get any water. And a lot of people go through their lives not living it, but existing in it. And they exist in their life by looking for one distraction after another. Now, we all laugh when we see an animal, for example, like a cat. I like big dogs. But if you
Okay.
see a cat chase its tail,
Right.
by the way, what's a great thing about victimhood? The person who loves cats is saying, he doesn't like cats. Get over it. Now, you watch a cat chase its tail, correct? After a while, the cat gets exhausted, doesn't it? And it's fascinating to watch this. As soon as it stops running in a circle, the thing it was chasing, that it was pulling away from itself, the head's pulling away the tail. Suddenly, the cat collapses in exhaustion, and the tail falls directly in front of the cat, and the cat ignores the tail. Why? And the answer is the cat chased its tail, but never really wanted its tail. It was chasing its tail as a distraction from what it didn't need to do for its life. And that's what we people do every day.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. I see that.
You see? So when
Yeah.
I'm working, so when I'm working with someone, I know that if people would be willing, and again, it's hunger. It's hunger.
Right. Gotta be
People wait
hungry.
when
Yeah.
people don't have hunger, they wait and they ask all kinds of questions. Somebody else. It's what Dan Pena calls an ASK space HOLE, asshole. In other words, they're not just doing it because, you ask anybody who's been in combat for this nation, this great nation of ours, the greatest place ever created, like that Marine, that woman last week. You
Right.
you ask anyone what first of all, you just don't come out naively and ask, well, what did you experience? But rather, all of the friends I have, most of them Marines, who served in my generation's war in Indochina, Southeast Asia, Vietnam,
Right. Right.
every
Yeah.
single one of them, and I know some Marines that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and now this lovely lady last week. Every single one of these people tell me, without a doubt, they say that the first time hot lead came at them and they got in a firefight, they had some thoughts about, what am I doing out here? I could get killed out here. But their training was so sunk into their physiology that their subconscious mind just kicked in and they did their job. Now,
Right.
I said, so when does your courage show up? And they said, only when I follow instinctively my training, and then the fear starts to disappear as their courage comes out. And I said, you mean the two are interwoven? And they said, precisely. It's transformation. So the people who are walking around who say, well, I got to go do a case study, or no, you just need to go into fucking action. And the reason I use the strong language is because Sigmund Freud discovered that when you do that, you get direct access to somebody's subconscious mind.
Right.
And what it does is that it starts to shake off of the tree of the client in their subconscious mind the fruit that's rotting on the apple tree, for example, to use an apple tree, so that the
Right.
nourishment can go to the healthy fruit that's there.
Right. Right.
Okay?
Sometimes
A
you need to stop
correctamundo.
it. Right. Right. And
Exactly. So what
yeah.
I'm doing with people is, you see, there is no control, Tamara. There is no control in life. And that means there's also no certainty in life. So what life is really about, and always has been for thousands of years, is that life is about learning to navigate the uncertainties of life, which means that you get more obstacles and you embrace those obstacles, because when you do, they reveal your lessons. And when you apply what you learn to your life, that is true freedom, where you don't need people's approval, you don't need people to like you, and now, from that freedom, you can redirect your destiny.
There you go.
Otherwise, otherwise doing something different without that freedom, if you do anything differently, it's resistance. And what you resist, you strengthen. Does all that make sense? Does to
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we could go on and on and on because, I mean, this is good stuff. And in fact, I've been sharing as we've been going that you've been getting comments and they're loving it. And right there, I think you summed it all up, and I knew you were going to, because you are a master teacher, and you, the thing I noticed about you, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to sum it up in my observation of you
Sure, please.
observing, because
Okay.
when I met you, you were there at first just quietly watching everyone. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, what's his story? And I actually came up to you, and I think I even asked you what your
Yeah.
story was. Who are you? What is your story?
Yeah.
Because I
Sure.
was so intrigued by you just watching everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
then you started engaging with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you helped two of my friends create an
Mm-hmm.
amazing breakthrough, and it was in such a short period of time. And
Yes.
just in what you shared today, in this period of time that we've had, and I
Yeah.
cannot wait for to get more and more comments as more and more people jump on and watch this in replay,
Yep.
because this is going to be one of those segments, one of
Mm-hmm.
our service hero segments, day number
Yeah.
123, that people are going to be able to go back and say, I have learned a lot today,
Yeah.
because in breaking down your stories, and I want to thank you for sharing your
Oh, you're
stories
welcome.
of
Does this mean we're getting
childhood.
off the air now?
No, soon, yeah, because I mean,
Okay. I know, because we don't want to
we've
miss.
been on for
I don't
a,
want to miss Christmas
yeah,
of
yeah, you don't want to,
2019.
we don't want to miss, yeah, the turn of
Shake and bake.
the century.
It all helped.
But I want to say that
Yeah,
I
dear.
have
What?
gotten a lot. My mind is just going crazy right now with all of this, and I
Yeah.
know that there are going to be many, and I want to
Well,
actually
you're
write.
looking for an equilibrium, Tamara.
There you go. That's good. There you
You're
go.
looking. See, there's a net that allows your spirit, which I call the subconscious mind. I don't care what you call it. You know,
Right.
I'll give you a quick example. Another thing I learned from Dan Pena
Okay.
is that people do things, and it makes sense. It was, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to rediscover the wisdom of the ages.
I agree with that
People
100%.
create
Absolutely, I
people
believe in that.
people create people get in the way of the sunshine that can flow through them, create a shadow, and then look for somebody to blame it on. Neuroassociative conditioning. So if you think of the nervous system, before I go on, so people do things out of either one or two things. One or two reasons people do everything. They either do something, especially if they want to make their lives better. They either do things out of desperation or out of inspiration. See, there are a lot of people, and I know a few of them, who are in personal development, but they haven't done that for their own lives. They're motivational bullshit artists. See, I'll show you something real quick here. I want you to see that cup of coffee? When that caffeine wears off, if my system isn't nourished properly, I'll crash and burn.
Right. Yes.
Now,
Yes.
that's also true with personal development. See, if you motivate somebody, you're giving them a fish. So here's a skill set I would like to teach your people right now, because we get in something called a crazy eight. Here's the number 8, right? Turn
Right.
sideways, it's like infinity. Now
Right.
you're looking at me and your viewers are looking at me. So this is this is your audience and you. This is
Right.
the left side. Okay, over here you're hurting like hell. You're in perhaps learned helplessness. You don't know how to get out. And then where the lines cross, the hurt starts to become anger, like this idiot over here who's still saying, walk outside, walk outside. You know, I have empathy for him, but I didn't wake up today, and I never wake up to go to look for people to make angry. I'm going to let him keep what he needs to, and I adjusted myself by responding. What did I do a few minutes ago? I walked a few feet away. Now I'm hearing, okay, so by the time the lines cross, you're getting angry and angry. Now you come over here to the right part of the crazy eight, right? Now, if anybody fucks with you, you'll chase them down the 405 for 38 miles to give them a piece of your mind. And why is that? Because I discovered a few years ago that even though I made that decision when I was 6 3/4 years old,
Right.
that key decision, I don't know how I'm going to survive till I can get out of here, but I'm never going to get married and never have a family, never recreate the hell I am. Well, guess what I discovered when I was out doing my early morning? I'd go out about 3:45, 4 a.m., watch the sunrise, and do 2 hours called Hour Power, special breathing. And I'd walk around the track near the house.
Okay.
And suddenly, it dawned on me, and no, the sun wasn't quite coming up yet, because you can create a sunrise inside yourself 24/7. You don't have to wait.
I believe
And
that.
so here's what I discovered. Holy shit, it dawned on me. I still had not divorced myself from my dad and mom's marriage. So my sub-person, what do I mean by that? Even though I'm like my dad, I'm more like my mom. And so just like the fingers, you know, where's the camera here?
Yeah.
Okay, there are my fingers. They cup with the other fingers and you pull tension. Okay. Inside of each of us, we've got 4 sub-personalities. We got the person we are as an adult. We have the child. Listen closely.
Right.
We've got the adult we are now. We've got the child we were when we were little at different stages of development. And sometimes stages can get arrested so we don't grow. And then we've got a minimum, we've got 2 more for a dad and a mom. And even if one of the parents weren't around, we still have that role model of the emptiness of dad not being there or mom dying or any number of things, okay?
Yeah,
So the part of me that's my dad and the part of me that's predominantly my mom we're pulling at one another. So the arguments we have in our head are not about us. It's about the role models in an argument with each other.
Huh. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
So when I discovered, holy shit, I'm still trapped in mom and dad's marriage. And everything began to shift. And where I am now 3 years later is, you know what? I would make a great husband to a great woman. So
So question.
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
curious.
Sure, anything.
Are you going to go
what?
against would you ever consider now after you 6 3/4, you made that decision, you're 6 3/4 years old. Would you ever consider at age 70 to now become that wonderful husband to that wonderful woman?
Well, I just said, you have your answer from what I just said, because your question's predicated upon what I said, and what I said is your answer. So you weren't listening.
I was listening. No, I just wanted to have you say it again.
Well, are you looking for a husband to share your life with?
No. But there may be some that are watching this that would be interested.
Okay. Some women I'll tell everybody right now that I'm not dating, and that doesn't mean I'm backing away from considering being a great husband. What I'm doing is my self-esteem is building because I'm building a brand in 2 different companies as we speak.
Right. Yes. You're very busy. In fact, you were mentioning that in 2 weeks, you just secured a room you're starting a new program, correct?
Yeah.
And then you're going to have something this next year that you're going to be doing.
Correct. I've got events that are being planned out into the future. And what's really important here because you've alluded to this several times about your brand of doing and one of the ways you express see, it occurred to me, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, that, people want to leave a legacy for their grandchildren, for example.
Okay.
Well, to me, that's great, but I found a legacy more important for my life, and that is to create a living legacy. That's what a role model is. One of my role models, just by this way the man carries himself for over 35 years, someone who lives here in Beverly Hills, Mr. Sidney Poitier. And I see him a couple times every month. He's an absolute gentleman. I saw him at the 90th anniversary back in '02 at Paramount Pictures. The way he treated his wife, the way he was with his friends. I mean, it was just wonderful. And it occurred to me, holy shit, a man who's not a gentleman is no man. So what you do is such, yes. So let's talk about very quickly the fourth item. The first was the Cold War. And it's not in any particular order, it just happened to begin first. And history is important. It's not about, oh, look at all I know, I've got my specs on. When I put these on, people think I'm a Harvard professor. One of those liberal Democratic Marxist Party of America places where all kinds of bullshit's going on in the educational system. That's why I love...
Tell us what you really think, Wyatt.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love... Yes. That's why I love what Big Al had to say. Big Al is Big Albert Einstein. I call him Big Al.
Oh, I love him.
Yes. Okay. And when he said that knowledge takes a backseat to imagination, he was spot on right.
Absolutely, I agree. 100%.
So, correct, Amundo. So what you're doing, you see, I use the highway of people's emotions. It's a highway upon which their lessons move along. And we're either expanding like the universe or contracting and getting smaller. The universe has been around for 15 billion years. So today, it's not going to decide, well, I've been working overtime all this time, all these billions of years. I think I'll take the rest of the day off. No, it either expands or it gets smaller. The same is true with us, because when you hold somebody in a box, you're the one that doesn't grow. So imagination is faith in action. And what I do with people is I find out which are the challenging emotions, which are the ones that are causing them gut-wrenching pain. It wasn't hanging, it wasn't depression that killed my friend Robin Williams. What killed Robin Williams was his neck was broken. Why did he do it? Because we're going to reverse engineer it. I know I knew him from before he was ever Robin Williams. Okay. So Robin hung himself. Okay, he hung himself. The neck breaks, the windpipe, no air, brain dies. Why did he do it? Depression. Why did he get depressed? Because he fucked up the chemistry of the proper functioning of his brain and his physiology because he abused alcohol and drugs. Why did he abuse alcohol and drugs? Because inside himself, Robin Williams was looking outside himself instead of, he was looking for people to tell him he was okay, because when he was growing up, his role models did not build up his self-esteem. Therefore, he always felt he wasn't enough. Therefore, he looked to his audiences, then he looked to drugs and alcohol, then depression kicked in, and then he killed himself. Yeah. Right. So the book is not about the cover ever. It's about what's going on inside between the front and back cover that most people don't want to look at because they deal with symptoms. Greed is not the reason why people want to get every dollar from your bank account. Greed is the symptom. It's the symptom of, see, what I do, and I'm booked more than 4 months ahead. The reason, but I keep 3 to 4 appointments open every week. Why do I do that? If somebody needs help and they have the hunger to help themselves, right, then I'll be there for them like your two friends. The important thing, and the reason why I'm explaining what I do is that I want your viewers to know this isn't a panacea. You have to recondition the strings of your nervous system. So let's say you play the piano or any string instrument, and you're the best in the whole world. Now, you still got to get it tuned up. But if you decide to teach somebody on your piano, they're going to learn from their mistakes. Now you got to tune it up more often. Now, if you neglect the piano tuning it up, it is not going to play the symphony that it could play. So what does all that mean? Imagine what happens when you neglect your nervous system and it gets so whacked out over tens of thousands of times in your lifetime. So you've got to retune it and recondition those strings. Now, this does not mean, and I want everybody to know this because this is important to me, I only work with people that want to get well now. I never take somebody on for more than 6 months. And I just fired a client. Yeah.
Because they weren't doing the work and they weren't hungry enough?
Yeah. They were either late continuously or sent me I reconfirm everything 24 hours ahead of time.
Right.
We had a long talk about it more than once, and I gave him some new skill sets, and things started to get better for a couple of weeks. And then he sent me an email 28 minutes after the appointment time saying, oh, I took a different flight back home, and the internet was slow. And I said, excuse me, and I explained it all out of respect and courtesy for myself and another person. And I said, and I'm letting you go. I'm terminating you as a client. Because if you had the hunger, you would have been here unless you were in a coma or dead.
Right.
Or you would have sent me an email,
Right.
or something. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if somebody doesn't, because you see the reason, if you go real quick, and this will be quick, if you go into the reception area of a physician, medical doctor's office, and everybody's complaining, the only reason why people are listening to somebody else's sad story is because they're waiting for them to finish so they'll listen to theirs.
Right. Okay.
So they enable one another to stay stuck. And this can be systemic because you can have a terrorist as a role model. And then the whole like, for example, people feel sorry for the wife because her husbands are drunk. But what they don't realize is, and I learned this from Dr. Chloe Madonis, one of my two mentors. The other one, Tony Robbins. So I learned from Dr. Madonis, how in the world is anybody going to give up their being an alcoholic if they go to an AA meeting, keep reasserting they're an alcoholic, and their life has become unmanageable? It's not about the gene and the DNA. They fucked up their chemistry by abusing alcohol, and the reason they turned to alcohol wasn't because they had the DNA. That's bullshit. What it is they didn't think they were enough, and so they're looking for the big distraction to chase their tail. So it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be religion. I gave a session to somebody the other day who's in desperation. Nice man, but he's all about the cover of the book. And you see this a lot in man's organized religions. You follow me? So whatever somebody wants to believe, let him believe it. But there's certain things that are true in life. And one of those is gravity. And the other one is accountability. So rather than be a snowflake like Dan Pena talks about and melt under the pressure of life, I say to my clients when they are, and I see it, I don't let them go on and on and on. Because what I do, and I'm going to close with this, and this is really important because people can develop this. When you allow yourself to safely leave your body, and it can be done safely, and now that's your subconscious mind, spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, you're outside your body and you're watching your body in human form, and you're watching your conscious mind observe its own thoughts and feelings. Now you have the freedom to begin living your life fully, full out, all out. And here's the point. Most people want to hide with their head in the sand all the time. So they talk a good talk, but they're not living their talk. There's a disconnect. So the other day, I was listening to this man go on and on and on. And what I do, because I'm outside my body, is I'm able, and I developed this at a young age. I took the out-of-body experiences, and I used it and overly developed, because men are different than women. We're not equal. Women use both halves of their brain to store data. Women have a built-in, state-of-the-art emotional radar system. You, dear, could walk into a room and experience everyone through your emotions. We men only use half our brain to store data. However, because I had to know when it was safe to go in the house, I had to read mother's mood as I first cracked the front door open. So what I do with clients, and I do it every day with everybody, is I'm out of my body vast majority of the time, and I'm in the heart of the client. I'm intuitively experiencing what they're feeling because I'm in their heart. And when I'm in their heart, I can intuitively know, as I said, once again, what they are feeling. So this is the wisdom of the ages. So what I said to this man, when he started to wind up his emotional spring a second time, I said to him, I'm intervening strategically here. You are so full of shit. And I told him why.
Not everybody wants to hear that.
Well, you know what? Then they don't have the hunger to grow.
I agree with
Now,
you.
I don't do that with somebody that has just attempted suicide.
Well, hopefully, yeah, right, exactly.
And for all of you out there, I've been in the depths of the depths in my life. But here's what I know, like Clark with Lewis, it's also the first step up the next mountainside.
There you go.
And when you get and on your way to the top, long before you get to the peak, the top, the view is spectacular, because I'm having one of those multi goosebump experiences right now, and like from head to toe. And
right.
That's when I know that the wisdom of the ages is flowing through me. And I want to now acknowledge you in closing for the immensely valuable service you provide to allow people a forum to enjoy the freedom to express themselves, which is provided by our military. And it's safeguarded by great men and women in law enforcement. So one other quick thing. So we had the Cold War, we had civil rights, we had the space race, and we've got male and female. And I'm telling you that the good thing about Me Too was that it's a support group for women that have been wronged by men who were wrong in their actions and must be accountable for their actions. And that movement's been hijacked by women who just want to live in victimhood and get attention for themselves at the expense of women who have indeed been abused. And then you saw it go into high gear on steroids with the Supreme Court nomination quite recently back east, in Washington. So here's what I have to say. Women who want to be victims are going to call me this and that. I don't give a rat's ass what they want to call me. If they're busy attacking me, it's because they need a distraction and are gutless to make their lives better. And I invite you women to be in your feminine power instead of disowning it to the women's movement and becoming and acting like the men who have hurt your mothers and your grandmothers. You women have an important place there, and I want each one of your women viewers to know this, that a strong, masculine alpha male wants women to be successful. But when a woman is in her masculine, a masculine man won't have anything to do with her because there's no polarity. And then if the man goes to his feminine side to kiss her ass and hide behind a happy wife is a happy life, that man is setting his wife up, but she's really playing him like a violin. She's turning him into another child for her instead of the strong man that she needs, so she can be in the greatest power that a woman has, and that's her feminine side. Feminine power can get anything done. Look at what women have done by turning their back on their feminine power. Imagine what you women can do by embracing it once again.
You have just given us an amazing amount of information in a very short period of time, and I know that there's going to be so many people that are going to say, I'd love to talk to you more, Wyatt. And there will be an opportunity for people to do that, right? You have, in a couple of weeks, you have for CEOs, right?
Yeah.
CEO level.
Yeah.
Um,
and it's a small gathering, but
Small
there's a bigger
gathering
seminar coming in the
in next
springtime.
year. Right, in next
And who'll
year.
know? Just have them send me a friend request because I've got all kinds of articles up there, and I've got my
Okay,
little snippet called "Thought for the Day," and there's lots of video testimonials of people I've worked with.
right.
And yeah, but not the movie stars because their income at the box office is determined by the image they project. So they don't want people to know
Right.
their dirty laundry. But I keep telling these people, well, there are washing machines all along the journey of your life for your dirty laundry.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
How can you do this for us? Can you, in the comment area, why
yeah,
don't you also just put your your contact
sure.
information, how you
I'll
want
just
them to get a hold of you?
yeah,
Because I have a feeling there's going to be some that are going to maybe want to work with you, some that may want to debate with you, and because of the fact that I love the fact that you will stand strong in your beliefs
yeah.
and that you are open to share them in such a way that if someone is really looking to unblock, like my two friends did, that you were able to help them. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I
Yeah.
want to go back to that
Mm-hmm.
originally because that's what I want to say. Thank you
Oh,
for
my pleasure.
Wyatt, and say, that as we close day number 123,
23.
yeah, 123,
Shake and bake. Yeah,
of
yeah,
365 days of awesome
yeah.
celebrate success service. Wyatt, you are one of a kind. There is no doubt in my mind. And you know what? I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for what you've done for my friends. And I want you to know that I appreciate the fact that you've put so much work into yourself and that you were so vulnerable to share that, your life story and why it is that you are doing what you're doing. And even the experience there at Starbucks, that you were open and honest about
Mm-hmm.
what was happening there. And you use it
Yeah.
as a teaching moment. And I want to say thank you for that.
Well, you're most welcome, and I appreciate the heartfelt acknowledgement. And I want everybody to know that that life is like the LA Marathon when it comes through Beverly Hills. Unlike the marathon where there's a finish line, there is no finish line for those of us who are human beings. Meaning, along the pathway, people run out with little cups of water and cheer on and encourage the runners. Well, you know what? We have those little checkpoints along the way where we can check our progress. If we put on blinders, we won't see the fullness of the beautiful sunrise within ourselves anytime we choose to have it. And isn't that what life is about? Is
Yes.
being the living legacy, the role model, not to look to see how people react and go, oh, and I hope they thank me. Well, then that's being a taker disguised as a giver. You're not giving anything. You're really what I call a parasite on the spirit of someone else, a vampire, if you will. When you live your life as its own reward, that's fulfillment.
There you
And I
go.
want I want all of you to know that it was not the last several years. I realized about 10 years ago that it's not dying I was terrified of all my life. It was not fully living because I know that my last living experience is going to be my death experience, and I will experience that last living experience out of the way I've lived my life. So rather than live it better, chasing my tail fearful and reinforcing the terror, what I did was I gave a different frame to it, a different meaning. The frame is part of the perception of the painting. Change the frame, your perception changes. Change the frame around the people that hurt you and see them as angels sent to you who made a decision in their subconscious mind to act like a motherfucker to you. And I'm also talking about children who've been molested. I got empathy for the molester, but they must be accountable for the consequences of their action. And that includes the Catholic Church. And I'm saying to you that in life, we have choices all the time. And
Right.
it may be a rock and a hard place. You know what? You can either allow people, it's like this. Remember the cat wanted to catch the mouse, so they put a piece of cheese with a string? Well, I
Okay.
discovered that the mouse, or whatever metaphor you want to use, what people do is they buy the best cheese, they put a string around it, and then they hand the string to what they perceive as their enemy, and then blame the cat for pulling the string. In other words, if somebody acts dishonorably and like a snake and steals from you, you may keep them as a friend, but you're not going to let them be alone in your house.
Right.
Sometimes for people who we love, we have to love from a distance.
Yeah, but that can be true, very true. And so as we end, I want to end it on a positive note.
I know you want to continue, but we got to go.
Yeah. I wanted to say, thank you for the help, and for those that want to get a hold of you, please do.
Facebook.
Yes, Facebook, and so you've got Wyatt McCain, and we'll be looking forward to many more. We'll be looking into what it is that you're doing, because Wyatt, you're a very interesting man, and I actually have learned so much over this period of time. So thank you very much.
Before you say adios without the MF, by the way, if people got pissed off at something I said today, then maybe you people needed to get pissed off. Now, what I'd like to offer to you right now, because I like being generous, because I experience prosperity by being generous. So if you will be my guest, I will give you, and it's going to be custom tailored to whatever your needs are. Don't you people out there go asking what happened, but I would be honored to give you a 2-hour session if you'd like to accept it.
I would love that. Thank you.
So
thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Messenger me a message, and don't send it collect. I'm just kidding. I don't think they had it any longer. I'm old enough to remember when there were no area codes and no zip codes. Send me a message, and we'll coordinate, and we'll knock it right out of the Milky Way galaxy for you. Okay?
Well, there you go, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, dear. Thank you so much. I appreciate your hunger and what you do. You're my hero.
Well, thank you. And you are our service hero number 1, 2, 3. Have a wonderful day, Wyatt. And everybody have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.